Have you ever heard a story where birds outsmart a snake by using human greed? This is a tale from India, an old folk tale with a brilliant twist. It teaches us about strategy, intelligence, and how to use an enemy's weakness against them. The story is called The Crows and the Serpent. It's not just about birds and a snake. It's about how thinking smart can solve even the biggest problems. So, sit back, relax, and let's begin the tale. Long ago, in a large banyan tree, there lived a pair of crows. They had built their nest carefully, high up on the strongest branch, safe from the dangers below. The male crow was sharp and observant, while the female crow was gentle and caring. Together, they lived peacefully, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the cool shade of the tree. But their happiness did not last long. At the base of the tree, inside a deep hole, there lived a black serpent. This serpent was not just any snake. It was cruel, dangerous, and always hungry. It had sharp eyes that watched the crows, and it knew their secret. The crows had laid eggs in their nest, and the serpent was waiting for the right time to strike. One day, while the crows were away searching for food, the serpent slithered up the tree. It moved silently, wrapping itself around the trunk, climbing higher and higher. Then, it reached the nest. With a single swift movement, it swallowed the eggs whole. After that, it curled back into its hole, satisfied. When the crows returned, they were heartbroken. Their nest was empty, and their precious eggs were gone. The female crow cried in sorrow, and the male crow clenched his beak in anger. They both knew who was responsible. The serpent had taken everything from them. Again and again, this cruel cycle continued. Every time the crows laid eggs, the serpent would climb the tree and eat them. No matter what the crows did, they could not stop it. They tried building their nest higher, but the snake still reached it. They tried attacking the snake, but it was too strong. They were helpless. The male crow knew that they could not live like this forever. If they did nothing, they would never be able to raise their young. But what could they do? Fighting was not an option. The snake was bigger, stronger, and faster. They had to think of something clever. So the male crow thought and thought. He knew that the snake was dangerous, but he also knew something else. It was not the only greedy creature around. There was another kind of greed, the greed of humans. And unlike the snake, humans had the power to destroy anything in their way. That was when the idea came. It was risky, but if it worked, they would finally be free. The male crow shared his plan with the female crow. At first, she was unsure. How could humans help them? Weren't humans just as dangerous as the snake? But the male crow explained that humans had one great weakness, greed. If they could use this weakness against the snake, they could finally get rid of it forever. The next morning, the crows set their plan in motion. They flew over the city, keeping their sharp eyes open. They were looking for something specific, something that would attract human attention. After searching for a while, they saw what they needed. A group of rich people were taking a bath in the river, and near them on the riverbank were piles of expensive jewelry. Gold chains, bangles, and earrings lay in the sunlight, unguarded. The male crow swooped down quickly. With his strong beak, he grabbed a thick gold chain and flew away. The people bathing in the river noticed at once. They shouted and pointed at the sky, but the crow was too fast. He flapped his wings and soared high, carrying the heavy chain toward the banyan tree. The female crow followed behind, but they were not taking the chain to their nest. Instead, they flew lower, toward the base of the tree, where the serpent's hole was. The male crow dropped the gold chain right at the entrance of the snake's burrow, letting it fall deep inside. Then, both crows flew back to a nearby branch and waited. Not long after, the rich men arrived, running and shouting. They had seen the direction the crow had gone and had followed it. When they reached the banyan tree, they stopped and looked around. The gold chain was nowhere in sight, but they knew it had fallen somewhere nearby. They began searching the ground, moving closer and closer to the snake's hole. One of the men suddenly spotted the glimmer of gold inside the burrow. Excited, he called the others, and soon they were all gathered around. But when one of them reached inside to grab the chain, something unexpected happened. The black serpent, disturbed by the noise and movement, slithered out of its hole. It raised its head high, its tongue flicking in the air. The men stepped back in fear. They had not expected to find a snake guarding the gold. But their greed was stronger than their fear. One of the men picked up a large stick. With a swift movement, he struck the serpent on its head. The snake hissed and tried to attack, but it was no match for the group of humans. They hit it again and again until it lay still. The men then reached inside the hole and pulled out the gold chain. Satisfied, they left the banyan tree, laughing and talking about their unexpected treasure. They did not care about the snake. To them, it was just an obstacle in their path. High up on the tree, the crows watched everything. Their plan had worked. The snake was dead, and their nest was safe. For the first time in a long while, they could finally lay their eggs without fear. The male crow turned to the female crow and nodded. They had won, not through strength, but through intelligence. They had used the greed of humans to remove their enemy. And now they could live in peace. With the snake gone, the banyan tree became a peaceful home once again. The crows built a stronger nest, weaving twigs and leaves carefully so that the wind would not shake it. They worked side by side, bringing soft feathers to line the nest. This time, when the female crow laid her eggs, she did so without fear. She sat on them, warming them with her body, while the male crow stayed alert, watching over their home. Days passed, and the crows remained cautious. They knew that even though the snake was dead, dangers could still come from other places. But nothing happened. No more eggs were lost. No enemy crept up the tree. The male crow had proven that intelligence was sometimes greater than strength. They had used their minds instead of their claws, and now they were free. Finally, one morning, the eggs began to hatch. Tiny cracks appeared on the surface, and small beaks broke through. One by one, the baby crows emerged, their feathers soft and their eyes blinking in the sunlight. The female crow chirped with joy, nuzzling them gently, while the male crow looked on with pride. Their hard work had paid off. Their family was complete. As the days turned into weeks, the baby crows grew stronger. They stretched their wings, flapped them clumsily, and learned to hop around the nest. The male crow brought them food, small insects, and grains, while the female crow kept them warm and safe. Slowly, the young birds gained confidence. They watched their parents soar through the sky, studying how they moved, and then one day it was time for them to learn to fly. The first attempts were awkward. The young crows flapped their wings too hard or not enough. They stumbled and lost their balance. But their parents were patient. They encouraged them, guiding them with gentle chirps, showing them how to ride the wind. Little by little, the young crows improved. Soon, they were gliding from branch to branch, their movements more natural, their wings steady. One afternoon, the male crow gathered his young ones close. He looked at them, proud of how far they had come, but he also knew that life was full of challenges. The world was wide and unpredictable. So, he decided to teach them an important lesson. He told them about the serpent, the enemy that had once threatened their home. He described how dangerous it was, how it had stolen their eggs and left them helpless. But more importantly, he told them how he had defeated it. The young crows listened carefully as their father spoke. He explained that in life, strength was not always the answer. Sometimes intelligence was the greatest weapon. When faced with a stronger enemy, brute force would not always work. But by thinking, by observing weaknesses, and by using the right strategies, even the biggest problems could be solved. The young crows chirped in understanding. They realized that survival was not just about having strong wings or sharp beaks. It was about knowing when to fight, when to wait, and when to use the enemy's own weakness against them. The male crow looked at his family and felt at peace. His children would remember this lesson. And one day, when they faced their own challenges, they would not be afraid. They would not give up. They would think, they would plan, and they would find a way just as he had. As time passed, the young crows grew stronger and more independent. Their wings, once weak and unsteady, now carried them high into the sky. They explored the land beyond the banyan tree, flying over fields, rivers, and villages. Every day, they discovered something new, a different kind of fruit, a strange animal, or the way the wind changed before a storm. But even as they learned about the world, they never forgot the lesson their father had taught them. They knew that survival was not just about being fast or powerful. It was about being wise. They had seen how their parents had overcome danger not with force, but with strategy. And they carried that knowledge with them wherever they went. One day, as the young crows were flying over a village, they noticed something unusual. A group of small birds was gathered near a tree, chirping loudly. They seemed distressed, flapping their wings in panic. Curious, the young crows flew closer to see what was wrong. Below them, on a lower branch, they saw the problem. A large eagle had captured a tiny bird in its sharp talons. The little bird struggled, trying to break free, but the eagle's grip was too strong. The other birds could do nothing but watch, their chirps filled with fear. The young crows felt a surge of anger. They knew that in nature, strong birds often preyed on weaker ones. But this was different. The eagle was not hunting for food. It was playing with its prey, enjoying its power over the smaller bird. This was not survival. It was cruelty. The crows knew they could not defeat the eagle in a direct fight. It was larger, stronger, and had sharp claws that could easily injure them. Attacking it head-on would be foolish. But they also knew that brute force was not the only way to win. They had seen their father outsmart the snake. And now, they had to find their own way to outsmart the eagle. They observed the eagle carefully. It was focused on its prey, ignoring everything else around it. It believed that no other bird would dare challenge it. This arrogance was its weakness. The crows quickly formed a plan. One of them flew to the eagle's side, cawing loudly to get its attention. Another circled from behind, flapping its wings in a way that sent gusts of air toward the eagle's face. The third dove suddenly toward the eagle's claws, forcing it to adjust its grip on the little bird. The eagle grew irritated. It tried to swipe at the crows, but they were too fast. Every time it turned to attack one, another would distract it from a different direction. They did not fight with force. They fought with confusion. They worked together, forcing the eagle to focus on too many things at once. Finally, the eagle made a mistake. In its frustration, it loosened its grip for just a moment. That was all the tiny bird needed. It wriggled free and darted away, flying straight to the safety of the trees. The eagle screeched in anger, realizing too late what had happened. It glared at the crows, but they did not back down. They stayed just out of reach, their black feathers gleaming in the sunlight. They had won not by being stronger, but by being smarter. The eagle, defeated, spread its wings and flew away. The smaller birds cheered, grateful for their rescue. They chirped their thanks to the crows, who simply nodded and flew back toward their own home. As they soared through the sky, the young crows felt a deep sense of pride. They had faced a powerful enemy and had not run away. They had remembered their father's lesson, and they had used their intelligence to win. Now they understood the true power of wisdom. Strength could fail. Speed could be matched. But a sharp mind, a well-planned strategy, those were weapons that no enemy could easily defeat. And so, as they returned to the banyan tree, they knew that no matter what challenges the future held, they would always be ready. The young crows had returned to the banyan tree, but they were no longer the same birds that had once struggled to take flight. They were wiser now, more experienced, and more confident in their abilities. They had learned to navigate the skies, find food, and protect themselves from danger. But most importantly, they had learned that intelligence was the greatest tool for survival. As they perched on the branches of their home, they reflected on everything that had happened. Their father's story about the serpent had not just been a tale of victory. It had been a lesson in thinking ahead, in understanding the weaknesses of an opponent, and in using strategy instead of force. And now they had applied that same lesson in their own battle against the eagle. The world was filled with dangers, and they knew they would face more challenges as they grew older. But they were not afraid. They had learned that no enemy was invincible. Every threat had a weakness, and if they could find it, they could always find a way to survive. One day, the father crow called his children to him. He had watched them grow, watched them learn, and now he knew that the time had come for them to leave. The banyan tree had been their first home, but it was not their final destination. The sky was vast, and their future lay beyond the branches of this tree. "You have learned well," the father crow said. "You have seen that the world is not always kind. But you have also seen that wisdom can overcome even the strongest enemy. Strength fades, speed slows, but intelligence lasts forever." The young crows listened carefully, their eyes filled with understanding. They knew that their journey was just beginning. They had grown under the safety of their parents, but now it was time to make their own way in the world. One by one, they spread their wings and took off. They soared into the sky, their black feathers gleaming under the sun. They were no longer just the children of the banyan tree. They were now explorers, survivors, and thinkers. As they flew, they looked down at the land below. They saw other birds struggling, just as they once had. They saw weaker creatures trying to escape from stronger ones. They saw moments of danger, moments of fear, moments of triumph. And they knew that throughout their lives, they would see these patterns again and again. But they also knew something else. They knew that in any situation, there was always a way out. A problem always had a solution. A predator always had a weakness. And those who used their minds would always find a way to survive. Far below, the banyan tree stood tall, its branches stretching toward the sky. The father and mother crow watched their children disappear into the distance, their hearts filled with pride. They had given them everything they needed, the knowledge, the lessons, the wisdom. Now the world belonged to them. The young crows did not look back. They did not need to. They carried their home, their lessons, and their memories with them wherever they went. They would fly far, face new challenges, and build new nests. They would teach their own children the same lessons one day. And so, the story of the crows and the serpent did not end. It lived on, carried by each new generation, whispered through the winds, passed from beak to beak. Because wisdom, once learned, never fades. It grows, spreads, and shapes the future for those who come after. And in the vast sky, where the wind was free and the horizon endless, the young crows flew forward, ready for whatever lay ahead. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.